So, all these recaps I've been doing of my current campaign have got me kind of feeling nostalgic. So, I thought I'd also tell the recap of my longest campaign and my favorite campaign before the one I'm currently running. But this one, simply called Death Crew, was originally with my cousin Connor and his character Octavian Starfeller. Ignore the profile picture of a normal person, because when we started this, he was an undead. He was a skeleton who hid his appearance. But the other player was Mars Grave Weaver, played by Lee. He was friends with Connor, and he became one of my friends. So yeah, it was these two. This campaign was just after I had burnout. Bad burnout. I had ended my previous campaign. It was with my friends at the time. I had ended it. It was very bad. It was a whole debacle. And I had been like, I don't want to play D&D for a while. So it was probably like a month or two just of nothing. No D&D, no prep, no nothing. And then my cousin, Connor, Octavian, came to me and he said, hey, we want you to run a game for us taking place on a floating city. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. So I did it. I made a city called Dextros. It was a floating city, and that's all I had. Literally, I sat down maybe a day later from him saying he wanted to play, and I was like, okay, floating city, done. And Dextros became one of my favorite cities I've ever created, not just because it was flying, but because it was so natural to make. Like, I like prepping, but I also find that I have a lot of fun improvising. Like, some of my best work in D&D has come from me improvising something. So, for example, I was like, okay, well, what do you guys want to do? And there was no session 0, which I recommend session 0s, yes, do them. It is invaluable. But this campaign, if I recall, was in 2021, and it ended, I don't know when it ended. It ended with an ending. Like, this is the first campaign that had an ending. Like, big boss battle, coming together, campaign ended. They're level 15 at the end, but I believe they started at level 3. So again, this was my longest running campaign to date. But in Dextros, I was like, okay, well, what do you guys want to do? Octavian, being a skeleton, his background was he did not know how he became undead. So he decided, okay, we're going to go to the local magic college. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't think of a magic college, so sure. So I was like, okay, it's called the Iron Dome. And it's this big metal shell sitting in the center of the city. And when you enter, you need permission. So they got in there with Mars. He was a cleric. And he was like, I should say this. Mars was a cleric and Octavian was a bard. But Mars got them in with the notion of doing research on, what turned Octavian into a skeleton. They didn't know. And this is where things started to get fun. Octavian, played by my cousin, was a trickster, literally. He picked up, I believe he had the telepathic feat, so he could communicate with people via telepathy. And he's sitting down waiting for Mars, and he's like, you know what? In his mind, I'm pretty sure he's like, I'm going to fuck with him. Fuck with me, not Mars. Fuck with the dungeon master. So he's like, I pick a random student and start talking to them. So I'm like, okay, you see this guy, robes, bags under his eyes, very tight. He's like, okay, I'm going to reach out and talk to him in his mind. And he starts pretending to be the pretzel in the guy's pocket. Completely improv. I'm like, yeah, he's like, oh, what's in your pocket? And he pulls out a pretzel. And I'm butchering this, I apologize, but it's been so long. I'm just remembering the big details, not the finer ones. But he pulls out the pretzel and starts talking to him as if he's a pretzel, just fucking with the guy. And then I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So I'm like, okay, he eats the pretzel. End of the thing. The guy eventually, he's so sleep deprived, he eats the pretzel, falls down to his knees, and has a nervous breakdown. Mars comes back, and they leave the magic college. And at this point, I'd like to point out, when you play D&D with your friends, everything is better. The jokes are funnier, the battles are more intense, the stories you have are amazing. Hearing them secondhand, it kind of loses that magic. So I don't expect people to understand how funny it was at the time. But when I was playing with them, I was happy. That's all that matters. But they leave, and they're like, okay, well, let's look for some work. So I'm like, okay, well, what kind of work would they have in a floating city? And I'm like, you know what? Okay. You run into a town crier saying that there have been disappearances in the bowels of the city. Now, Dextros floated with a mixture of magic and technology. I don't remember the exact details, but there was like a whole section beneath the city called the Bowels, where they had, gangs. There were, it comes up later in the next session actually, like underground illegal markets, but there's also a lot of dangerous creatures down there. So they go to the town crier, and he's like, "Hey, adventurers looking for work. People have been going missing." And he's like, "Oh," they're like, "Okay, we'll take the job." So they head down there. Immediately, they run into a man, scared out of his life, saying they need to leave, they need to escape. But he's off. Something about him's off. So they decide they're going to push on. He follows. And that is when I introduced the monster, the adult Oblex. I introduced this thing. Now, this thing is just nightmare fuel to me. Like, oh my goodness. But they fight it, and I believe this is where rules kind of... This is when I started doing the rule of cool, basically. Like, up until that point, most of my D&D campaigns have been very straight-laced, very by the book. But it's at this point I started realizing it'd be more fun to just have things happen. Fuck the rules. For example, the adult Oblex, Octavian, my cousin, launches a Tasha's Hideous Laughter. The Oblex is immune to being prone, but if I recall, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, if I can bring it up for a second. Tasha's Hideous Laughter, where is it? Oh my goodness, where is it? Let's see if I can spell hideous. Okay, well, they cast Tasha's Hideous Laughter. The creature is immune to being prone. So I was like, well, then what happens? What happens? Apparently it's not a spell anymore. That's weird. Tasha, yeah, it's even in the... That's weird. Whatever, it doesn't matter. They fought the Oblex. Tasha's Hideous Laughtered it. Can't fall prone, but it can be incapacitated. It says, addition to immunities, blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, prone, but not incapacitated. So I was like, okay, Tasha's Hideous Laughter works. And then Mars just beat the thing into the ground until it was dead. They beat the creature, left the bowels, and that was the end of the first session, I remember. The next arc, which is also a self-contained session, is when we introduce a new character, bringing the party to 3, which technically it was only 2 because Mars Lee wasn't there. But yeah, the next arc is when I got into like I said earlier with Psycha, I got into that groove and I knew how I wanted things to go. I could plan, and I was looking forward to prepping.